USA Biz Party. I have with me today Jim Fuhs of Fuhs Marketing Fusion.
Yeah.
Fusion Marketing. Okay, got that right the third time. No problem. And Sue of Asoma, who specializes in social media marketing for book authors. So welcome to USA Biz Party, and thank you for your participation. You guys had such great tweets, great things to share with people on promotion. I was just too busy retweeting, trying to get everybody's information out because it was so good.
It was a very good chat today.
Yeah, we had some new people join us, and even some people who aren't book authors but really understand the importance of marketing, especially with books. So it was a wonderful chat.
Yes, it was.
Oh, and that's turned off. Okay, so today's chat was all about promoting your book. And that can seem like a really daunting task to promote your book because, you know, sometimes we have this idea for a book, we put it out, but we don't have much of a follower base. And so it can almost seem like we're on an uphill struggle and we're fearful it's going to cost tons and tons of money. And then at the end, it's going to cost us more to promote the book than it did to publish the book. So what I'd like to talk about right now is book proposals. You know, that's a big part of publishing and promotion. So who would like to start first about book proposals?
Oh, we're going to put it all over on Sue because I've never done one. So.
Okay, good. So,
okay, great. So first I want to say that a book proposal is usually for a nonfiction author. And Jim, are you a nonfiction author? I believe so.
I would be once I write my book.
Once you write your book, excellent. So primarily for nonfiction versus fiction, which is what I work with primarily is nonfiction. And also if you're going to look for a traditional publisher, a book proposal is absolutely necessary for a traditional book publisher. So what I recommend is even if you're going to self-publish, which more and more people are, that they still write the book proposal. And it isn't because now they're going to hand it off to a publisher or a literary agent. It's for you as the author. Do you really know who your target audience is? Do you know how you're going to market the book? What are all the different aspects that you need to have in place being a self-published author? Or do you just put your book out on Amazon and then hope it sells? So a book proposal really, really will help you as the author to define all these different aspects, who your target is, and then how to use social media marketing in particular, because that's my primary focus. An author that I worked with a few years ago had been looking for a traditional publisher, and he worked with an editor who created a book proposal for him. And I mean, this thing is like 30 pages long. 10 of those pages was just on the book marketing aspect of what he was going to do. And probably half of that was specifically what social media marketing he was going to do for the book. So it really helps to define that for you. I worked with his editor, and actually I work with her quite a bit. We share clients, and you know her, Anna. She was on one of our Twitter chats a couple of weeks ago, and you've talked to her, Candace Johnson. Mm-hmm. Candace is an, excuse me, an excellent editor, and she was so kind as to write a guest post for me some time ago on what to include in social media in a book proposal. So on my website, if you were to go to my blog and search for book proposal, you'll find that guest post by Candace Johnson. And so she talks about that a little bit, your platform, how you can share your influence through your social media connections, and how all of that ties in with what a traditional publisher is looking for in a book proposal. But again, to help you as an author, even a self-published author, to know what you need to do to make sure that you're presenting your book in a way that people will want to pick it up and read it. Buy it first and then read it.
There you go.
Yep.
So most of our people most people probably involved in our chat are probably self-published authors, may not feel a need for that, but based on what you're saying, it sounds like it's a really good idea. So what would be the components of a good book proposal?
Right. So I have written about this also on my blog, and just reviewing, for example, the book proposal that a previous client had for his nonfiction book. Some of the main headings in his book proposal are first an overview, and so he writes about the topic of his book and why it would be relevant, for example, to in that case more for a traditional publisher, but relevant to an audience. You know, what is this book about and why is it relevant? Are there special features in it or unique features that perhaps aren't somewhere else? Are you going to be writing additional books and putting that into a book proposal? And even again, for a self-published author, this will really help them to more clearly define, you know, who's my target audience? What's the benefit of this book? Am I going to be writing additional books? Because if so, that really will tie in with your marketing as well. The next section is an about the author section, which is fairly short, but, you know, details as to why you are an expert at this. Why did you write this book, and why would anybody care that you wrote it? You know, that kind of thing about you, not just a general bio. And then a fairly decent section on your target market. Who are the potential readers that might be interested in this book? And then, you know, depending on what the topic is there a trade market out there for it, or corporations or some other entity that might be interested in that book, and really defining that, who that is and why they would be interested and how you could approach them. A traditional book proposal also is going to include a section on competitive and complementary books. So, you know, what's the competition, knowing that and detailing that, as well as what are books that would be similar to that or that would complement it. And again, as a self-published author, if you know that, you're certainly going to be a lot more knowledgeable about then how to market it, because you're going to already know what's out there, who your competition is. You know, how can you make what you have different, better? See what those complementary or competitive books are saying about themselves or what those authors are saying on Amazon or on their social media, so that you know, how is this topic being marketed already, and what can I do that will make my book unique. And then the book marketing and promotion section includes everything you would do with social media, everything you do offline. Are you going to, do in-person book launch parties, reviews, signings? Not so much anymore in the times we live in. Now it might be more of a virtual book signing. Who could you network with? Are there people, on LinkedIn that you could network with and work with to help promote your book? Are there other venues, other avenues to use this book? Is it something that could be used in a class? Perhaps it's actually more textbook kind of thing. The book I wrote many years ago, that's exactly what it was designed more to be used in a class to help virtual workers. So all of that is in the marketing and book promotion section. And then you're going to have a contents of the book section, and that's actually going to include, for a traditional publisher in a book proposal, quite a bit of the book, a few chapters perhaps even, so that they can get a good idea of what it's all about. And then you're going to have, in addition to that, an actual chapter summary section where each chapter is summarized to some degree, and then include those sample chapters. So I hope that all made sense. I ran through that kind of fast, but that would be the basics of a book proposal. Quite detailed, actually, depending on how big your book is and who you're trying to market it to.
Wow. Jim, what questions do you have, or do you have any questions concerning this process that Sue's talking about?
Well, I thought it was interesting. I had never thought of it from that perspective, but writing a book that could be used in a teaching environment, like especially when you think of all these people that are wanting to, in a sense, teach social media. How is that, say, different than writing a book for, say, like as an example, if I write a book about social media, where I'm basically maybe just hitting, is it more detailed, do you think, in regards to, or like what's really the big difference between, say, a social media nonfiction book for, like, say, for the average person to read that has an interest versus, like, I want this to be used like to teach basics of social media 101?
Right. Yeah, if you're going to write something that's actually going to be used to teach an audience or used in a class, it's going to probably have a little bit more detail than just a general, here's some knowledge about social media, but maybe some more detail as to exactly how things work. And you have to be careful, especially if you're writing about social media, because it changes all the time. So you don't want it to become too outdated either. So I would write more about maybe the principles of how to use social media versus, you know, here's how you compose a tweet in 140 characters. Oops, it's 280 now, has been for some time. So there's that. I would also include maybe end of chapter actual, you know, questions, maybe either created as a study guide or discussion questions or exercises, those types of things that are a little bit more interactive so that a teacher or an educator could use those and they don't have to come up with the questions or with the curriculum. It's kind of designed already in that manner. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It's, you know, and the thing I think too, people need to recognize, and we talked about this last week too, is that a book isn't necessarily about the book itself. You know, there are people who say, well, I'll write a book and then I'll get all these royalties or book profits or whatever. That really a book is to share your expertise, and the money that comes out of a book is when you are able to use that book in courses, and not necessarily in a school setting, perhaps what we're talking about here as a textbook would be, but more as a jumping off point to get people to enroll and to work with you personally in some kind of coaching or some kind of coursework.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I was just going to ask Jim, is that something that you're interested in doing and actually teaching
Well,
some sort of a course?
I teach as it is now at several community colleges. I do workshops, but I think more, I've been thinking, you know, and that was just more out of interest, but I think more to Anna's point, my business coach is, you know, she's written 3 books now. And really the whole idea behind the book, to Anna's point, is not, oh, I'm going to make millions off this book. It's like, I want to get you to sign up to work with me.
Yep.
And that goes back to, I think, what you brought up, which is a critical factor of who is your target audience. And if that target audience then sees, like, you know, because like maybe now based on what I'm doing with my podcast as an example, maybe I want to write a book about live streaming and then get people to want to either, you know, work with me or get into a course or something like that. As opposed to, you know, sitting there like, oh, I'm going to write a textbook, because we don't even know how people are going to go back to school yet.
Well, and a lot of it is going to be online and virtual. And if you can, you know, create something that can be used in that manner. I know my book, it used to be that even though the course was online, the students didn't actually go to a community class. Even though that was so, the teacher still bought physical books and sent them to each of the students. They're no longer doing that. The book is on Kindle, so they're, you know, instead purchasing it Kindle. So again, you know, knowing, and I think that this is the way the world is going to be for a while. So whatever you do, you know, having that in mind, knowing exactly what you want out of it will help you. It's just like a business, you know, if you're going to start a new business, you really need to have these questions answered, you know, who am I looking for, and is there a market for it? Same thing with a book. When somebody's about to write a book, I think they should go through kind of that same process, you know, is there a market for it? How should I, you know, market it? And is the target really that I want to sell books, which I don't think it should be, or is it that I want people to come and, you know, hire me for this? And then once you know all of that, and again, a book proposal will really help you to define that for yourself. Then it'll be so much easier to do the book promotion.
Yeah, because I think too, you bring up, and this I guess is maybe even where, say, books are evolving, not just like, say, as an example, people listen to audiobooks, but the fact that with I guess you want to call it an electronic format book, you can now have these hyperlinks to a much more detailed, you know, information. Maybe it takes them to a website or somewhere else where there's like, you know, here's all these charts and stuff or videos that I couldn't fit into the book.
Right.
But now we've kind of making it more of a almost multimedia experience.
Exactly. And that brings up a really good point. I think too often that authors don't think about what they should include in the Kindle version of their book that will help them to sell even more books, especially if they've written, let's say, a series of books or more than, one book. Make sure at the end of your book, particularly if it's a digital version, Kindle, that you include, links to, hey, sign up for my newsletter, or get more information here, or I offer this course, or call me, I offer a free 15-minute phone consult, whatever it is. And it could be several things, but like you said, those things can be included with links. And if you have additional books, include those with links to where to buy them. You enjoyed this book, I think you're going to love my book on XYZ, here it is. So I think that's an opportunity that too many, especially self-published authors, don't think about. They're just thinking about this book and how to make a lot of sales. But if they think about that and include all of that, I think they will find that they have a much broader range and they will get more sales.
Well, and another benefit to doing something like that. So as I'm getting ready with my book, I'm thinking, okay, I've been listening to some other books. So I've been listening to a book called Fix This Now by Mike Michalowicz, which, by the way, Mike will be a co-host probably in another month with us. And when you listen to Audible, when you listen to his audio version of the book, he at the end of the book, he says, now, I wrote this for this, but if you want something more, I've written another chapter, so go to my website. So even if people are picking up the book, let's say on Amazon, or the Audible book, which is an Amazon product, he's still directing them back to the website. He's still taking them back to grow his list so that he can serve more people. Because the other thing is especially when books go up on Amazon, we really don't have a way to link them back to our website. They buy the book and, they're just, it's like they went to Barnes & Noble, bought the book off the shelf. But we want to be building the list. The book is a tool. The book is not an end in and of itself. So great points.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment on that. When I help authors set up their Amazon author profile, you can actually put quite a bit of information in the sidebar. And even though it won't be a hyperlink, you can put in there, sign up for my newsletter at my website. And so many authors don't do that. And then it's easy for somebody to copy and paste, go to their website and sign up for their newsletter. So that's one thing that can be done, even though it's not a quick hyperlink, so that you're not losing those people. If they take the time to read your full bio, they will still find your website.
Yeah, oh, very nice, very nice. Now I wanted to touch on BookHub. I'm sorry. Because my computer is now not speaking to anybody except itself. I can't pull up the document. So why don't you speak to that? Because I've never heard of that. And I thought, I think that would be very interesting, especially to self-published authors.
Yeah, and so it's called BookBub, B-O-O-K, capital B-U-B. Mostly it has been used by fiction authors to get their book up there and then create what's called BookBub ads. However, I have a really good friend, Ann Janzer, who's a prolific nonfiction author, and she did an experiment with BookBub ads and was kind enough to share that with her audience and also to write a blog post for my blog where she shared her experience. So personally, I don't have experience with BookBub, but I have heard really good things about it. And again, as with any advertising, there are pros and cons. So I would tell everybody to do, their due diligence. But I have heard that for the investment that you make there, just about everybody gets a really good return on their investment, that it's fairly easy, and they have a large audience. They send out emails, constantly, or however often you'd like. And so for nonfiction authors, as Anne is, it has become more and more popular, something to do. They have featured deals of the day where they send their subscriber list these featured deals of the day. So if you've done an ad that would be included in that, it's going to be seen by probably thousands of people. There is a lot of good control over the ads when the ads show. It's very scalable as far as spending money, and it lets you target fans of specific authors. So if you know that your book is similar to this author's book, and that's who you want to target, you're able to target pretty well that way as well. I'm actually going to put, if it's okay, in the link or in the chat, links to both that and then the other article on my website about book proposals, and that way, you know, you could look at those in more detail. Maybe you can even add those when you post this on YouTube, so that people can read those and learn a little bit more about it if they'd like.
Well, and then we can also put it with the USABizParty hashtag, since that's been our focus all month.
Excellent.
Is how do we go from an idea to actually having a book, something that we can hand to people. And I mean, when I started this process, I wasn't even aware of there was so much to it. And I'm really glad we've done this. Next week's going to be a lot of fun because it's going to be about becoming a bestseller. And I don't know that we have a co-host yet, so I'm looking if you have any recommendations for somebody who knows about how to take something to bestseller status. I know a lot of people I've supported. I've gotten copies of, so I've read that I'm reading this book, A Mind for Sales. Mark Hunter's a friend of mine, contacted me and he said, would you be part of my launch party? I go, absolutely. Now, I love Mark. I would do anything for him, almost. But I also did it knowing that I'm going to have a book launch coming up as well. And so I'm also trying to build social currency with people, and especially because Mark has tens of thousands of followers. I just hit 5,300, so I'm pretty excited.
Excellent. That's about where I'm at.
But yeah, I mean, all of these things, there are all so many pieces. And unless you're just going to write an ebook, put it up on your website for just the people who come to your website, you know, these are all important things for people to be thinking about and to get expert help with, because when we try to do it all by ourselves, let's face it, life gets in the way. Who would have believed that we would all be staying at home, wondering what we were going to do and wearing masks to go to the store along with gloves? You know, a year ago, nobody would have even imagined what we've been through for the last 3-4 months just to go to the store and get groceries, right?
Right.
And so it's really helpful to start building a team to help you with a book launch, with getting your book together, because one of the things I'm learning is it's just so important not to try to do it all on your own.
Yeah, it is a little overwhelming. And I find, unfortunately, a lot of times authors, they've gotten so wrapped up with the book, writing the book and then getting it published, that once it's out there, then they're just too tired to continue. They feel worn out, and now I have to market too, and I have to do it for forever, really, because you do need to keep marketing your book. Yep. It can be a little overwhelming.
It can. Any final words, Jim, Sue? What would you like to conclude? Words of wisdom, something to encourage our audience?
I think the biggest thing is don't be afraid to get started. I mean, even if it's just making a little progress. I mean, we have so much more time on our hands, or like even what I've found interesting, like with this podcast journey that I started is, you know, whether it's live streaming or podcasting, you're creating content that you can change into words. And so maybe that can become the foundation for your blog post, for your book, as opposed to getting overwhelmed, like, oh, now I got to write all this stuff out. And I think that's probably where, you know, I would think someone like Sue can help you, you know, kind of bridge that fear. I almost think sometimes for us it's imposter syndrome, like, oh, I'm not good enough to be an author, right? Because I don't like writing, in a sense. So I think, yeah, and I was checking out that book BookBub. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Very interesting, and you know, people are still going to keep reading, whether it's electronically or listening to people's stories. And I think, you know, I don't think books will ever go away. It's just maybe the format that we consume them in.
That's so true, Jim. And actually, statistics are showing that more people are reading than ever, or listening to audiobooks. maybe not a physical book, more Kindle books and audiobooks. So there is definitely still an audience for books. I don't think that it's ever too early to start book marketing. If an author has an idea for a book and they know they're going to write it, it's time to start marketing it. And I don't mean that means, you know, go out and tell everybody you're going to buy a book, but start sharing your message, what it is that you are passionate about, so that you can start that following. And I just want to throw out again, I mentioned this in the Twitter chat, but I do free 15-minute consults all the time. You can go to my website and, you know, under the Start Here button, you'll see that. If anybody ever wants to just chat and say, I don't know, what should I do? There's no obligation. It's not a pushy sales. I am just interested in helping people to understand how to use social media to market their book the right way and the current way, because it does change almost daily.
Right, for sure, for sure. Well, thank you so very much. Again, next week we're going to be talking about booksellers. If you're watching this video, please do hit the subscribe button so that when we post new videos every week, you get that notification and you too can enter the conversation that we start on Twitter. So thanks, Jim and Sue, for joining. Be sure to check out the links. Their Twitter profiles will be in there. You'll be able to connect with them directly, but make sure you connect with me too. I'm your